Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning. Today is just a good old-fashioned career job search Q&A. So I am here to answer your career-related questions. Now, I've seen some of you have already asked them in chat. I have a couple that I just realized I need to plug in my phone. I have a couple that are comments from videos the other day. So I will go through those as well. Okay, now I've got hair all over my face. We will get started on those questions in just a second. I do want to let you know I'm drinking a Starbucks Cold Brew today. This was bought for me today by Dawn. I'm like, whose name was it? It was Dawn. So if you didn't know, you can always buy me a coffee to say thank you. That is in the description box below. It's super easy. It's just called Buy Me a Coffee, and you can throw me some money to get my next iced coffee because I love iced coffee. Let me take a sip. So thank you to Dawn for today's coffee. Then let me see, what else do I need to tell you about? Quick housekeeping. Oh, I am doing a webinar next week. If you haven't seen it, I am doing a webinar next week, live 4 steps to your strategic job search. It will not be a live stream on YouTube. You have to register for this. It's free, but you got to register. You can go to it at the link in the description box. I'm also putting, oops, that was the wrong one. That's the wrong link in the comments. Hold on one second, because of course I had it already and then I did the wrong thing. It is in the description box, but if you are in the chat right now, there you go. It's the 4 steps webinar link. So go there. Now that all the housekeeping is out of the way, let's start talking about your questions. So Johannes, I saw, asked, how do we hone transferable skills? I want to change careers to a different industry, and so far didn't get any because of I'm guessing you're saying didn't get any new offers because of the lack of skills you have. So that sounds like 2 different things. So transferable skills means they can transfer, right? What did you do in one job that would go to another? Did you have to, there's certain things that are just kind of transferable everywhere. Like, did you have to organize things? What's your time management like? Did you work with people in some capacity? Those things tend to be transferable no matter what. Now, if you're talking about, hey, I need new skills that are needed in that new industry, then we need to start getting new experiences. So can you volunteer? Can you just do a project for the fun of it? Can you do something for free for friends or family just to start honing that skill? Even super basic things that people don't think about as a starting point, like can read about the thing and then, read a book on it, take a course, then do the projects with the course. That's something that people don't do. Is people love to hoard courses, hoard online courses in particular, and watch the lessons, but then never do the exercises. Do the exercises. Then you'll have something to share with people to show that you can do this thing that they're looking for. So that is where I would start. Then next one, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name. I don't know what your real name is. You had said, my resume advice had been very helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. And you said, now I think I'm not coming across well in interviews. Advice. So that's what the other link was for. Honestly, this is going to sound like a sales pitch. It's not. The best thing you can do is get feedback on your interview. The fact that you said, I don't think I'm coming across well, makes me think we need to do some practice and see how you're coming across. And so if you book me for a one-on-one interview, you would get that feedback. But other things I would say is, practice your answers. Be preparing well ahead, which if you've been watching my interview videos, I'm sure you know that by now. But I would be looking at practicing as much as possible, making sure answers flow, making sure you're making the connection between what they're asking and what you've done in the past that reflects that you're a good fit for the company. You can practice that with friends and just say, was it clear how my answer fit these things? But at the end of the day, sometimes your friends don't know what the right answer is. And so That's why sometimes practicing doing a practice interview with me might be a good idea for you. But I would say in general, practice, tape yourself, right? Record yourself, watch it back. Are you smiling, or because you were nervous, did you start talking like this and you just sound, I mean, if I talked like this and looked this dead in the eyes, I wouldn't come across great either. There's certain things you can watch back and go, oh, I got to fix that so that I come off a little better. So those are some things that I would get started with that I would look at. So I know those were the couple questions in this chat. I'm going to move to the questions that were left on comments on the post in a minute. But if you have other questions, please write them in the chat just so I can make sure I get to them. So the other questions, let me see, I got to flip screens. I want to do them in order. So what Kendra asked, what's the most important information to put on a cover letter, and what can you do to make it stand out? So to stand out, and I say this a lot, to stand out, just follow directions. It's crazy. Most people don't follow directions. Most people do not properly format a cover letter. So if you take all that into consideration and properly format and put, you know, the address and the date and have a signature line, doesn't mean you have to go handwrite something, but like address things properly. There are no grammatical mistakes. Those sorts of things actually make you stand out a ton. People love to want to be zany, you know, like, oh, I got to do something creative. No, follow the rule. Follow the rules before you can break the rules. So learn to follow the rules, do all of those things perfectly, and I promise you, you'll stand out because 98% of candidates are not doing that. Then, in terms of what needs to be covered, it is not your whole life story. It is not absolutely everything you've possibly ever done that could be great for the company. We don't have time for all of that. And it's not a list of, hey, you asked for these things on the job description. I bring, and then you just list like, I bring communication, organization, and time management skills to this job. Great. Why do I believe you? So here's what you do. You choose 2 or 3 skills or strengths listed in that job description, and then you give me a quick example of how you've done that. I know you're looking for someone with written communication skills. For the last year, I have been the creator of our weekly company newsletter that gets distributed to our 12,000 members. Great. Like that paints a picture of they've had to do written communication. Now, with that example, I don't know yet if your communication is good, but it tells me if they put you in charge of this newsletter and you've been doing it for a year, it does insinuate that you are doing a decent job at that. So give an example of how you've done that skill. And you just do it with 2 or 3 skills, either whatever is the most important skills that you can see on that job description, or the ones that you are best aligned with. So that's what I would do with that for a cover letter. Let me take a sip of coffee and look at the next question. Okay. I'm looking for a new job and would love to change fields, as I am afraid that the longer I stay at my current job, the further away I am from building new experiences and getting my dream job. Wow, I can't talk today. What is the most important step I could take in this direction? So similar to what I said at the top, for one of our other friends here, go get experiences. So I love that you're seeing this job might be putting me farther away from the job I want. The 2 most important things you can do is start building experience, even possibly outside of work, that gets you closer to that dream job. So again, can you volunteer somewhere? Can you take a night class or an online course and actually, again, do the activities and projects they tell you to do the assignments? Can you start networking with people to learn more about the industry and start making contacts there? That's going to be really important. And then the other part that I would say can be important based off that question you said, my current job is getting me farther away from my dream job. I am going to assume in some way that this current job is paying decent. And the more you work your way up to transfer, a lateral move might be hard. This isn't always the case. It's just sometimes the case. And I've had clients like this that, because I worked with a lot of people who wanted to work in television and film, I've had people who had great jobs that were just boring jobs, like doing some sort of paperwork in the manufacturing industry, but they had a nice 9 to 5. They had great benefits and they were making really good money. And they're like, but my dream is to work in television. And it's like, great. Television as a starting job is not going to pay what you've been making, nor will you have the hours you've been having or have the benefits you've been having. And so you have to be willing, but they'd gotten so far removed that it was really hard to make that change. They'd let their lifestyle bump. It's called lifestyle creep. Like they'd let their lifestyle creep to the amount of money they made. And so the other thing I would say is start creating a runway and start making sure that the lifestyle you have fits with whatever the new salary would be, not the salary you're living on now. So it sounds drastic, but sometimes people will get a roommate. Like when I wanted to make a career change, I got a roommate. Or you move back. Gary Vee always talks about like move back in with your parents for 2 years while you're getting that new thing going. Like start figuring out what are some of those financial steps you need to take to make that pivot possible. Okay. And then Joanne asked, she said, every week I receive from LinkedIn a list of how many times I've come up in searches and the names of companies and or potential employers. What should I do with this information? Good question. So I love that LinkedIn gives us that because it shows us like, oh my gosh, I'm coming up in searches. Oh my gosh, people are seeing me. Like that's exciting. But it can be, you'd have to do a lot of detective work to figure out who it was at the company that found you. I would focus more on what search results are you coming up for. In that same email, it'll tell you the places where you came up, the people were searching for, and it will tell you what they were searching for. Are you coming up for the right things? Like I've come up for things that I don't do anymore. And so it helped me know like, oh, I got to pivot my profile a little bit. Oh, I got to change what it's saying about me. So I would actually care more about that part. Then if it's companies that you're actually interested in, I would be going back and trying to find people in those companies, in the departments you want to be in, and start connecting. Send a message request with it. You don't need to mention like, hey, someone at your company was looking for me, but maybe they've now become familiar with your name and they will pay attention. The other thing you can do is start creating content around something going on at their company or something that you really like that their company did and did a post about it. Highlight for them like, hey, I'm paying attention to you and I'd like to work for you one day. And so it can keep building that relationship. But in all honesty, because we don't know who it was within that company that found you, I only spend so much time on that. I'd really focus more on the search results part. Okay, those are all the questions for the comments section. And if you have questions, please put those in chat. Just a quick little midway break to remind you. If my videos have helped you before and you'd like to say thank you, you can always buy me a coffee. Today's coffee was bought by Dawn. And so thank you, Dawn. I'm very happy with my cold brew. You can get the link to buy me a coffee down below. And then also starting next week, I am doing a live webinar that will not be on YouTube. You have to register for it. It's free, but you do have to register. You can get the link down below. And then also right there in the chat as it decides to go up, 4 steps webinar, you can go sign up for one of those 4 times. And it's 4 steps to your strategic job search. This is the framework I use to help people get jobs. So go register for that when we're done here. It's in the description box as well. It's going to help you out. Let me take a sip before we keep going. Okay. Cartman said he took a copywriting course but didn't do the written exercises. Yeah. What's a copywriting course if you didn't do the exercises, right? And that's no judgment. That's coming from someone who's read like 5 copywriting books and they'll say, make 7 headlines. I'm like, that's a good idea. turn the page. Like, no, go do the exercise. So good, Carmen. Your assignment after this is to go do the assignments. Okay, let me see. Uh, I've been asked about what achievements I've ever achieved, but I don't have any particular achievements because I focus on healing myself from a very severe depression. How should I answer that question? So here's what I would say with that. If if we're focused on our mental health, I would be focused on our mental health. Like, I am not a doctor here, so please nobody come for me because this is not my wheelhouse. So I don't I don't want to touch this too much, but if we're in that space, we have to get just going in life before we're worried about what our achievements are. Now, what I would say for just in general, people have a hard time thinking about what they achieve. Like, unless they won some sort of bing, an award, a trophy or whatever, this is an achievement. We have a hard time thinking about what we achieved. Couple of things. Go through old reviews. If you're in a position where you have reviews from the past, go through old reviews. What did your boss say about you? What are things you contributed to the company achieving? A lot of times, what we see as an achievement and what they mean by achievement are different things, and it's not quite as high level as we think it should be. Um, Another thing to do is start giving to get better at this, start giving yourself credit every day of what you achieved. Like, literally every day go, what did I achieve today? Where did I move the needle forward? Where did I improve 1%? Over time, those things pay off. Um, but you don't also, well, I'm trying to think of how to say it. Achievement is what it means to you a little bit too, of like, if you can take why something that looks small is actually a huge achievement, then go for it. I would say they need to be work related, but in your case, I would focus on the mental health part first, and then come back to the job search stuff. Okay, Jay De Niro, is it okay to reach out to the recruiter through LinkedIn for a position you have applied for? I noticed they looked at my profile. Yes, you should. Now, my big advice, and you'll learn more about this if you join the webinar next week, is if we are waiting until we've applied to reach out to a recruiter, it's a tad late. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but that's not a best practice. I want you knowing the recruiters before a job even comes up. So I'm just going to put that out there. We'll talk about it more next week. Join me on that webinar. But if you've been in touch with a recruiter or you've applied and then you connect with a recruiter, great. And then you see they looked at your profile. I don't think it's bad. I would actually probably make a joke about it and send them a message and say, hey, I applied for this position last week and I was super excited that LinkedIn notified me that you looked at my profile. Not trying to be a creeper, but if you have any questions or if you need anything clarified, please let me know. I'm very excited about this position. Like, just show them that you're excited. Don't go on and on, but just, hey, I saw you looked at my profile. I did apply for blah, blah, blah position, and I'd be very excited for the opportunity. Please let me know if I can answer any questions for you. Something quick, but something just to reinforce, like, that's how interested I am. I'm going to follow up with you again now that I've seen that you looked. So I think that's something worth doing. Now, any other questions? I will give those one more minute to come through. Again, there is a live webinar that I'm doing 4 times starting next week. It is starting next Wednesday. And it's live webinar. You have to register for it, but it's free. You can get the info for it in the description box below. Also, thank you again to Dawn for today's coffee. Austin, don't be a creeper. I'll block you from my account. You won't be able to be here again. Bye. No, I don't have an OnlyFans. No, I won't have an OnlyFans. Don't creep. Then let's see. Sorry, we had to get rid of him, y'all. This is normally such a lovely place. Why does one person have to ruin it? So let's see, Jennifer. She said, okay, so Jennifer, you said, I saw several great jobs on Craigslist posted by an agency. Applied and tracked down the recruiter on LinkedIn, but crickets. It happens. It happens. Not everyone's going to get back to you. So this is something, and Jennifer, this is not towards you. You are just getting my brain to go, oh yeah, I need to like let's talk about this idea. Um uh, Recruiters are completely overwhelmed right now, y'all. Like recruiters are overwhelmed all the time. That position you're going for, especially if it's something like an agency, that position you're going for, they probably have 50 positions. I'm giving a nice number. That one recruiter might be trying to fill 50 positions. Now, each of those positions could be getting 100 or more people going for it. They do not have time to get back to everybody, right? If you are not a good fit, they might not be able to get back to you. They might not be able to get to you that day or at all. Like, we have to remember, as much as right now is that it's a candidate's market, they are still in control. They are still the ones at the end of the day who are in control. And so it's not always a slight against you. They just can't always get back. And maybe they didn't see that you're a good fit, or maybe they haven't even gotten to that role yet. Like when I graduated college, there were jobs I applied for that I didn't hear back from my application for 5 months because they're just so under it. Like they're in such a pit of trying to get out of all these positions. So just know that could be the case. Now, I did see now you also said, I'm worried that as I'm changing careers, she might not have even seen my resume. She probably did. I don't know why we know it's a she. Maybe I'm missing something, but they probably did. But it doesn't mean they saw that you were the best fit. Always make sure you're tailoring it to the job at hand. I'm not saying you didn't. This is just out there for everybody. Always make sure you're tailoring to the job at hand. I would say do not apply for multiple positions unless they are very extremely similar to each other. So just keep that in mind. I would probably need more information to go further, but applying online is only going to do so much. And so that's why a lot of times you do need to be looking at networking, getting to know people. Come to the webinar next week. We'll talk. I'll explain more of why. Okay. Bob, thank you for saying it's solid information. Somebody asked where I'm from. I'm from Southern California. I don't live there anymore. Robert, any pointers on passing employer technical assessments? Does purchasing boot camp like programs work for this? They're crazy hard to master. So, I have a couple of thoughts on this. Employer assessments should just be you taking it because this is what you know, and either you know it or you don't. Or like people talk about this is slightly different, but people will talk about like, oh, my next step is an aptitude test. What do I do for it? I'm like, be yourself. Like they'll if you match what they're looking for, you'll match. Don't try and like game the system. Now, in terms of the tech assessments, like I'm talking like coding challenges, I don't think it would hurt. That's not my wheelhouse, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on something I'm not. I don't think researching can hurt. I don't know if I would buy a thousands of dollar boot camp on passing a technical assessment, because then we might just be gaming the system of I can pass the assessment, but I can't do what would be needed of me in the job. And then maybe because maybe we're just not at that level yet. And now we're not doing well in the job. Now we're fired from the job. And now that's a whole thing. So I wouldn't go into anything that says they can like game it, but I would do more informational research on what are they really looking for in those technical assessments? How can I get past those? Like I do know from my past experience in tech, my brief experience in it, a lot of times they're not looking for you to have the right answer. They want to see why you came to the answer you came to. Now, that's what happens more if it's a in person or online, but live, the assessments are more trying to get your level, like your expertise level. And so I wouldn't do too much there if it's not just up leveling your skills in general. Okay. If you're asked a question like a behavioral question and you don't have a specific answer for it, how would you suggest answering that? I believe I actually have a full video about this, but one thing I say is always try and come up with something that you actually have done it before. But if you truly have never done that thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with going, I've like, let's say, tell me about a time you've had a conflict with someone. Now, I'm sure you've had a conflict with somebody somewhere. It might not have been at work, but in a class project, on a volunteer committee, those love a conflict. But let's pretend you've never had a conflict. You could say, I've been really lucky that I've never had the sort of conflict you're talking about. But I do believe that if that situation arose, this is how I would handle it. And then you go into what you would do. That's the best you can do, right? That's the most you can do. And then I would be trying to move on to the next thing. Let's get to another question where we do have some actual examples for it, but sometimes that does happen. Do what you can do. Let's see, you're in your final year in South Africa. Internship interview last week, call back with an offer the next day. Awesome. So congrats on the internship, y'all. I think sometimes internships are harder to get than your first job. So congrats on that. And then Eva, and y'all, I think this is, because of time, going to be our last question. Eva, you said, I just got called for an interview from a job I interviewed for last year. I wasn't chosen then, but they called me again to see if I'm still interested. What should I do? Should I go for it? If you are still interested in that position, yes, we need to go interview and ask some questions in the interview of why is this position open now? What happened? Y'all, we do this all the time. I did this all the time before I was on the other side. All the time when we don't get a job, we all of a sudden decide they must have hated me, or I must be so far removed from what the job was. There was somebody who was so much better than me, or they chose that person over me for we act like it must be this big leap in between. No, often, very often, there are 5 people that were great for the job and we had to choose one. I have been with so many people who I've worked with so many clients and heard so many stories of, I have these 2 people and I love both of them, but I only have one position open and I'm going with this person for whatever arbitrary reason, but it doesn't mean they hated the other person. This is why we always stay in touch with people after interviews. This is why we follow up. This is why we still say thank you after, because you don't know when another position will come around. And so, Eva, I would go, if you still want the job, if it was a job you wanted a year ago and you still want it now, why not go for it? But I would be wanting to know what happened to the last person in this role. Why are you not why did you choose them over me? None of that, but so I'm just curious, why are you looking again? Why was this position open again now? I'm still very interested, but what happened there? I would find out, because just because we wanted a position doesn't mean it was a good position. There might be reasons, valid reasons why that person decided to leave. And so you don't know. So use this to do a little extra research, but just because they didn't want you, and I really say want in quotes, because they could have wanted you and just not had an extra position open. Just because they didn't want you then, they could want you now. Oh, you said the girl left for other opportunities. Great. Then it's just open. I still think the words other opportunities are interesting, but it's so contextual and nuanced depending on what the position was, what industry you're in. That can mean different things. People jump ship faster in certain industries than others and at different levels. But just be mindful of what they say in the interview, of what the job entails, to see if you still really want it. But yes, I would go for it. Is it okay to ask, and this will be Catherine, this will be our very last question. Hi, Catherine. Is it okay to ask about salary during an interview if it wasn't mentioned during the interview or in the job description? Okay. Yes and no. This is the thing that people get really mad about in my video of 10 things to never say in an interview. I say, don't ask about salary. And what I mean is, you don't go on the first interview, how much will I get paid? Like, the way I would preface this, if we really need to know early, is, you know, I'm very interested in this position, but I would hate to waste your time or mine in going through a whole process to then find out we're not aligned on salary. So while I understand you probably can't give me a number right now, could you give me a range? Just so that we know it's worth both of our times moving forward. Um, and I would just leave it there and see what they say. I think that's perfectly fine to do. So, shoot, Jennifer, sorry, this will be the last question because I really do have to go. You said, I've been applying for virtual EA positions. In my opinion, is it an oversaturated or high demand market? I don't know enough. It depends on what kind of virtual EA position you're going for. Um, Jennifer, in all honesty, I would just start your own executive assistant business. Like, become a virtual assistant. If that's what you want to do, I wouldn't be trying to do it through somebody. I would just promote yourself as a virtual assistant online and let someone come to you. So that is it, you all. I have to end there because I don't think I said at the beginning, apartment management is coming to do something in my apartment at the exact same time today. So thank you all for coming. Again, if you want to say thank you, if I've helped you, the easiest way to do that, a very affordable way to do that, is buy me a coffee. You can get the link to that down below. You know that I love my coffee and you might get a shout out in the next live. And then also, go down below and register for the free webinar. They start next week. There's 4 times. If you can't make any of them live, no worries. There will be a replay, but you have to register to get the replay. So go register. I will see you all next week and in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.